How is the Goldberg family today? I hope you're all doing great. We're getting closer to Christmas, and like I always say, Goldberg is the gift that keeps on giving. So this time, we always like to switch around from the reviews. So we want to do something different. But before we mention what we're gonna do, we always would like to start by saying thank you to everybody, to all our new subscribers, Mr. Steve Ross. We're gonna thank also Daryl Aldrich. There are our new subscribers, so thank you very much. Stephanie, Sonia, very good. Thank you so much for all the support that are giving us. The channel will not be where it is because of all the people that we're getting. So we love the support. Also, I want to shout out Kirsty, a very big fan of the show. She's been showing concern about my health, and I'm trying to get better. I'm not trying not to talk much, but road break, we always said we will carry on. It doesn't matter what happens. So we're back here. So, Jean Paul, we're going to talk about Broken Skull Sessions episode 2, and this time is featuring Bill Goldberg.
Yeah, I mean, this episode, it definitely, it was like, I wasn't sure who they were going to pick, Goldberg, and it wasn't as good as the first episode, but it definitely, we learned a lot about Goldberg that we didn't know, because you didn't really know much about him up until this point.
Yeah, I think that, like you said, it wasn't as good as a whole thing like The Undertaker was.
Yeah.
By the way, the episode for The Undertaker did a lot of views, so thank you so much. And this one kind of left me with a bitter taste in my mouth, despite how much I learned from Goldberg.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't as good. The connection, the interview didn't flow as much, at least for me. And also, they were the main thing that they used to hook people in, which was the match with The Undertaker. Mm-hmm. They actually didn't mention anything about that.
Yeah, the match in the Crown Jewel.
The Crown Jewel with The Undertaker, actually there was in the preview, they said, oh, I got a receipt for The Undertaker.
Uh-huh.
And they never mentioned that, so maybe they cut that. Or,
and like we said, that could be because of Matt Riddle. When Matt Riddle was like, no, you don't owe The Undertaker a receipt, which would be an ass kicking. They're like, you owe him, Matt Riddle was like, you owe him an apology.
Yes.
Because that was all your fault. And then I think they cut that part from the episode.
Maybe that's why.
The episode was even shorter than than the Undertaker.
The Undertaker, yeah. The Undertaker was an hour and 30 minutes.
Yeah, and this was an hour and 10.
And an hour and 10 minutes. But I feel that we actually got to know more about what Bill Goldberg is, or at least what he thinks of himself, what he thinks about his career and everything. And the one thing I want to mention to you is that Bill Goldberg is one of those rare stories that it was full circle. He was able to come back and he gave to the business because, wrestling gave him a lot. Without wrestling, Bill Goldberg will not be what he is right now, because he will not be doing TV. He will not be a noticeable figure.
Well, yeah, and one of the things he mentioned in this, how he got into movies and acting, and then that's how he met his wife, who was a stunt woman. But he probably wouldn't have got those gigs if he wasn't for wrestling. So he never would have met his wife and never,
Exactly. So we were gonna start with mentioning how, to me, the first big thing, the big important thing to mention is he's oh, I never wanted to be a professional wrestler.
Yeah, and he said he watched it. He watched all the guys and I think he was from Texas, Bruiser Brody, Devon Eriks, all those guys. Yeah.
Yes.
But he's it's one of those, how we watch a TV show and we're oh, that was pretty cool. Watch it for 10 minutes, click.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't, he wasn't enamored by it. He didn't love it. He didn't want to be a professional wrestler. He wasn't so many people who oh, I grew up watching Shawn Michaels or Hulk Hogan and I wanted to be them. Yeah, Ric Flair. No, he was just this is kind of cool.
Like we were, you know, I grew up watching Macho Man Randy Savage. And that's why I just stir my vocal cords. He's ooh, yeah.
Yeah, see, that sounds pretty good.
It's because
I should give him the glasses.
Yeah, that's because I just want to be Randy Savage that bad that I actually am hurting my own vocal cords.
Yeah, he was drinking sand before this.
That's what it is. But, you're right. He was never meant to be a professional wrestler. At least he didn't want to be. His dream was always to be a professional football player. Mm-hmm. And he kind of, trained for that. He did all that.
Yeah. He went to college and all that, but he got he said he didn't pass the NCAA drug thing, so I don't
Yeah.
know if he was, smoking a little bit of the RVD or what he was doing.
Let
but
me get
yeah,
to the point.
Yep.
Let's roll another joint. So, or the ones that love Tom Petty. There you go.
But yeah, I don't know what like that whole situation was, or maybe it was steroids.
Maybe
It
might
could have been that
roids,
too.
So you
but
want to know that.
yeah, he was taken in like the 11th round when the NFL was like 16 rounds. That he was taken so towards the bottom. But so I guess he was better than where he was drafted. But I feel like he was bragging himself up probably a little more than he actually was. But yeah, he was only in the NFL for a little bit. He was injured. I think he said he tore his pecker. It was some.
He's doing his pec, his groin also. He said,
yeah.
He said his back and the groin. He said it was, and he did mention it was kind of like a career ending.
Yeah, because it was
injury.
completely torn off or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, because he played a whole season.
Yeah,
or
like
something.
that. And he didn't tell anybody. And then I'm already contagion him. So that's what we do. All for road break. So and it's live. Just because of you, we don't edit. Everything is one cut. So again, he does that. He makes it to the NFL. He plays for the Falcons. Does he do good or no?
That I don't know. I don't know his stats. He only played for a few years, for like maybe 2 or 3 years. It was the same thing. How like he had a better career than Lesnar.
Yes.
Because Lesnar, I think, only played a couple. I think he only played like maybe 8 games.
Yeah.
And done.
So he was never like a main event guy.
No, I don't think he's Goldberg. I think started. Like he was like on the starting lineup, but I don't think Lesnar ever started.
Okay, see,
Yeah,
that's
so
what
he
I
was
mean.
better than Lesnar in the NFL.
Yeah, and then he gets cut from that team.
Yeah, I think once he was injured, they cut him.
They finally realized that he's injured, so he actually went and tried to play for another team, but then he ends up playing in another league.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like the world league or something, and then he wins the trophy there. But professional wrestling was always around. He always will see wrestlers because sports athletes, they will always like see each other, and then they will see in one party he mentions he sees Diamond Dallas Page, DDP. He sees him walking around with the belt because maybe at that time he was just carrying belts and stuff, and he's just
he said he saw it was, I don't know if he saw him, but it was some wrestler, I forget who he said it was, or I think he just said the story, and the guy was like trying to brag like he was so cool when he brought the belt, and he was like that he thought it was like you shouldn't be doing that in public.
Yeah.
And he was almost like, but that's because he didn't understand wrestling. Like wrestling back then was like, even in the like early 90s, late 80s, whenever this was, like it was still like kind of real a little bit. Kayfabe.
And the kayfabe was like still there.
So like the champion wouldn't be like, oh, I'm just gonna leave my dumb belt on the bed in the hotel. They're gonna wear it because they're the champion.
Because you wanted to
Yeah.
promote.
Yeah.
You wanted to portray where you were.
Yeah.
And if you're a wrestler and if you're
And
a
that's
champion.
but he was kind of like shitting on that. He was like, oh, I don't know, like.
I don't know if I want to be one of those
he's
guys.
Like, I wouldn't ever want to be one of those guys.
Yeah,
And
for
it's
example, now that we go to old school stuff, just for example, I know you know this, but Ric Flair always said that when you're the champion and you were at a bar, you will buy around for everybody because you were the champion. That was etiquette. And back then.
Yeah, because they also told the guys back then too, if you're the champion and you get in a fight at the bar, you better kick that dude's ass.
Yes.
Because if Joe Blow knocks you out at the bar, you're our champion, you look like a loser. They're like, we're taking the belt off you.
You will take the belt right away the next night because
Yeah.
the champion always has to look strong.
Yeah.
So those are kind of like secret codes, etiquette that you will know only if you were part of the business or you were in the business. And you could tell that Goldberg tries different things and he says, I was lost. I didn't have anything. I didn't know where I was going. And then finally...
Yeah, you said DDP.
DDP, like everybody, he helped so many people. That
DDP's legit.
Page is so awesome. And then we want to mention that unfortunately he's getting divorced, so we want to send all the love and support to Diamond Dallas Page because we all know that separation always hurts. It doesn't matter if you are the one that wants to separate or not, but separation is something that always hurts people. So hey, we're supporting you, DDP. I have a picture with you, is legit, so always for you, buddy. So he gets him into the business, and then he goes and starts training right away on WCW Power Plan. And then he says that the person that is training him is Sergeant
Buddy Lee Rogers.
Buddy Lee Rogers. And then he starts training, and then the one thing I do caught my attention is that how he always record himself. and then he saw what he was
and
doing.
that's like a football thing. In football, they're all about watching film from practice and like learning, like, oh, like, what did I do? Like, what did I mess up? Like, this play, I was able to get the quarterback. Like, what did I do? Oh, this is what I did. Versus, like, this play, like, I got my ass kicked. You know, what did I do? And then you compare. So that's probably what he was doing, comparing the tape. Like, how did I hit this move? How did I, you know, take a bump here? How did I do this? You know.
Something that I would like to mention is John Paul, besides being a Bible in wrestling, is a Bible on the American football. So he knows a lot about the football. Not, you know, football, not football.
Not football.
Yes, not goal, none of that. But that's why he knows how the football players think. So that's why probably he was doing this thing. And then he was training there 6 months. They gave him like a contract for like a year, so he had a debut right away. And then he finally gets his first match and everything, and that's how his career begins.
Yeah, that's a streak.
And then, you know, of course, they told him, like, he learns pretty fast his craft because there was not pretty much to learn.
Yeah.
Maybe a few punches, shoulder tackle that you probably will do in football.
Yeah.
So he knows that.
Yeah, and he was, like you said, he was like, oh, yeah, you know, I was ready in 6 months, like, bragging it up. But he wasn't out there putting on a 5-star classic. He had 4 moves, so how hard was it really to get ready in 6 months?
And that's what I mean. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
well, the guy was, ripped, you know, he was jacked.
But, no, that's the one thing. He said he opened a gym. Was that before he got in WCW?
Yeah,
he
said
like,
that, like, because of the money that he made, you know, in the Falcons and everything, he opened a gym in Atlanta, Georgia. I think he was living at that time, and a lot of wrestlers will come and train. So he was always involved.
Yeah.
This is the kind of guy that, like, got in the business by default, not because he wanted it. It's just because he was pretty much forced to do it.
Like, the business was around him.
Exactly, he was around around him instead of like him being around. You know? And well, he has his first match, and like I said, there wasn't many moves. It's like a spear, jackhammer, maybe a few punches, shoulder tackles, and that was it.
Mm.
But the one,
But he did say, like, oh yeah, I wanted to be called the hybrid because it was going to be like wrestling and MMA. Because what did he say? I knew MMA was going to be big.
See, that's the one thing I want. You know, and like, I want to say, personally, I do enjoy Bill Goldberg. I don't think he's the greatest wrestler in the world, but his gimmick was legit. You know, one there, kick-ass, you know, powerhouse, big moves. The spear, probably he has the best spear
Oh my God,
in the whole business. Even in the games, we play the games, you know that who has the best spear. The one that looks more devastating than any other one.
Yeah, when you're doing the Creative Superstar, you scroll to Goldberg's spear.
Yeah,
That's
spear,
the one you
because
want.
that's the one you want. So I will say something that I did catch from the interview is kind of like a little bit of arrogance. He had to like break a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how he comes across, but maybe he's not that guy. But I don't think.
Yeah,
that,
he
like,
seemed like modest. It was with some things.
modest,
and then
not modest.
Yeah, and then other things he would be like, oh yeah, you know, I was great or I was so this, but he wouldn't come out and like say like, oh, I'm great, I'm fantastic. He would say it in ways that you had to really pick up on it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, that's how he would say. He would try to like hide the fact he was like bragging about himself.
Yes, and
Which, I mean, obviously, like, you should think you're confident, but like Undertaker and his was like humble.
Oh, yeah.
Because obviously, like, it speaks for yourself. Like, it speaks for itself. We can just turn on the network and see how badass you were.
Exactly.
You don't need to be shoving it in our face.
And I'm sorry about like the Undertaker. It's just the Undertaker.
Yeah.
You know, everybody, at least if you talk to people about professional wrestling, if you mention the Undertaker, oh yeah,
more people will know the Undertaker than
the Goldberg, the gory guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, oh yeah, the Undertaker. But he started pulling his career, and like you said, I did not appreciate that. Oh yeah, I knew MMA was gonna be big, like.
Yeah, and that's like when you said about his moves, because he was like, oh yeah, I tried to mix in MMA. I'm like, what did he do that was MMA?
And the only time that he tried a super kick, what happened?
He killed Bret Hart.
He pretty much ended his career, because for the ones that don't know, Bill Goldberg did a super kick and then ended up finishing Bret Hart's career because he injured his neck to the point that he was never able to wrestle again. Although he did wrestle Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 26, but that was probably
so awful.
one of the worst matches.
That never happened.
That doesn't count in John Paul's, because John Paul is a big fan of Bret Hart. I like the Hitman, but I've never been a big fan of the Hitman. I just appreciate the love for the business that he has. But moving forward, the streak begins. This guy gets over. The thing I want to mention, he goes over organically. Mm-hmm. People get behind Big Goldberg for being a powerhouse, and because we didn't get a lot of him, we got probably 4 minutes every single show. and then the streak begins. Everything. He doesn't put Chris Jericho over. See, that's something that they didn't mention there.
Well, yeah, because they're not going to talk about Jericho.
Because, of course, AEW and everything. But see, Chris Jericho wanted to have a match with him, and there were so many promos, so many vignettes, so many shots.
Well, that was the same thing. I don't know if this happened before or after, but I know he had a match with Regal, and Regal fucking stretched him.
Yeah.
And they hated that. Regal got so much shit for that backstage because he made Goldberg look like a loser.
Yes, because Regal actually wanted to have a match.
Yeah.
And Regal being British.
Yeah.
And that type of wrestling, British style. When you went at it, because you in Britain, you're not, you're just not gonna pull over people. You're just gonna go for it.
Yeah, they wrestle. They do. Yeah, they wrestle.
Yeah. The whole moves, and Regal uppercut. Regal is probably a great wrestler, but he did mention that he did thank Finlay, because Finlay kind of helped him out and everything, because Regal didn't. There was a lot of people that did not like what Bill Goldberg had to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, then he becomes a tag champ with Bret Hart. And then it was a good thing that they mentioned, is like he didn't even know, but like he found out with like with the whole audience, with the people watching TV
on Thunder,
that he was going to face Hulk Hogan. At that time, Hollywood Hulk Hogan. And he becomes the WCW World Heavyweight Champion. Which to me is a match, is legit, because he a face wins, and at that time the NWO was such a big heel that they put over a baby face. It was cool.
Yeah, but it should have been on. That's the thing that should have been on Starrcade, but they didn't, of course, want him to go over.
Well, the one thing, John Paul, is because that's the one thing that WCW did, and sometimes like we mentioned this on Dynamite. This guy has extremely great reviews on Dynamite, and WCW did, they spoiled out the dream matches on free TV. Why? Because they were during the Monday Night Wars. They wanted to be WWE.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
they gave out all these free matches. And this was one of them. Bill Goldberg, Hollywood Hulk Hogan, WCW Championship on the line, and they do a title switch on top of that. That could easily be a Starrcade. It could be your Great American Bash. Could have been all of those pay-per-views, and they didn't do that. And even he says, if they would have advertised
Yeah, because he said 40,000 people saw it or were there.
It would have been, he says, imagine 40,000 people if they were promoted like they should have. It would have been great. But anyway, he went with the title. He got a good run. But then the streak ends in one of the most crappy ways. If you want me to go rated R, in one of the most bullshit ways. And he mentions that he does not like Chico. For the ones that don't know who I'm talking about, Razor Ramon, Scott Hall. So, what do you think about that? For example, when you see that, when the first time you saw how he uses the taser, Starrcade, and then Kevin Nash becomes the champion, what are your thoughts about that?
If you're going just off that, I'm like, that's fine, because NWO are heels, whatever. It's just building it up. But then what happens after that is what makes it bullshit. Because Kevin, for them to cheat, it's like, okay, you're just getting more heel heat on them. And I love Chico, so. But, using the taser's legit.
Oh, yeah.
But, but then after that, the finger poke of doom.
And then, that's when you will say Vince Russo, Bishop, Bishop, I think, was gone. So Russo and the NWO, Nash, and Hall were pretty much writing the storylines there.
And I told him, I was like, if I was there, if I was like a Benoit or Malenko, one of those undercard guys who they wouldn't really care if you left or not, Jericho, if he was still there, if I saw the finger poke of doom, I would have been like, I'm done. I'd be like, this company's run by morons.
And that's why many of them left. That's what Jericho, I think he was already in WWE, but that's why Malenko, the whole Radicals, and the Radicals, Perry Saturn, Guerrero, Malenko, Benoit, they all left. So that's why in 2000 they were on WWE. But you're right, because that's when you will see that the pushes.
Yeah, and Goldberg,
the political power.
And Goldberg said, he's like, I didn't know. He's like, I didn't understand backstage politics. How do you not understand that a finger poke of doom isn't the most bullshit thing in professional wrestling?
Yeah,
when you're going out there, and Goldberg was arguably the most legit dude in WCW, with his moves and how he hit them and how powerful they were, and then to see somebody use a finger poke. I mean, obviously they all hugged Hogan, and it was all a big just to get the belt back on him, but it was
oh yeah, that's when you that's one of the kind of things is like you will see like Bill Goldberg is like, yeah, I was a wrestler, but I did not want it to be a wrestler. It's like I didn't pretty much enjoy being a wrestler. Because that's the vibe that I'm getting.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, I was legit, but like at the same time, it's not what I want it to be. It's like, hey, I was a manager.
Yeah, because all he said,
all
he said, he was like, I just want to be a part of a team. Like that's what he liked about football.
Yeah.
Besides running people over, tackling people, he's like, I just wanted to be a part of a team, and that's what he kind of felt wrestling was then.
Yeah.
But he realized that in wrestling, like Jim Ross said it best, you're lucky if you can have this many friends when you leave the business.
Yeah.
And he said even him being in the business for like 30, 40 years or whatever.
Probably he said like he has like 3 or 4 that he considers friends.
Yeah. So like that's the thing. Goldberg thought this was going to be a fraternity of brothers, and it's like no, all these brothers have knives and they all stab you in the back.
Yeah, because there's so many backstage politics and everything.
Wrestling's not a team business. It was a team business in a Monday Night Wars. Once they started to lose the wars and WWE took off, WWF, whatever, it took off, then it was like, well, now it's not us against them. Now it's just us. Now it's like, shit. Now who's going to fight for the belt? Who's going to...
It's like there's a lot of groups within the company, and we can mention that on WWE also. The Click, that was one team. The Undertaker has his own group.
The Bone Street crew.
They have their own group. And even, Sasha and Bailey are their own team, right? And if you want to then nowadays... locker room. Alexa Bliss, Nikki Cross, Ember Moon. Before, Alexa Bliss used to be really good friends with Nia Jax. They're not good friends anymore. You can see political pulls. You can see that there's little things, for example, why they push him and not me. Why am I not doing that that he's doing? And at the end of the day, it's like you want to be popular. You want to break in. You want your merchandise to sell. You want your name to be a household name. So at the end of the day, that's going to bring that jealousy. That's going to bring that, well, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, they're really good friends. But, that doesn't mean that they get along with everybody else. So, Bill Goldberg, once again, he kind of, the run ends for him. They mentioned, I was really popular and everything, but I did not sign right away with WWE, and that's what I missed.
And because pretty much after that, they talked about then with the whole limo, where he punches the limo and all that.
See, that's legit.
That was legit. And then he was out for 10 months or something. They said?
Yeah.
He was out for a long time.
Well, he breaks his whole thing, the bones and everything, and like he says, and that's the second mention of Scott Hall being a piece of shit. He says he's a piece of shit because they should have got a different kind of glass, so I will just break it like that. But no, because it was live TV, I had to make it look legit. So that's why
you couldn't punch it and then walk away, and it's like, oh, you look like a pussy.
Exactly, and then he goes like this.
Even though that's harder to break that glass than you think.
And if you don't believe us, then ask Kurt Angle and Shane McMahon. King of the Ring 2001. If you guys want to see that match, legit match. Kurt Angle, Shane McMahon. That's legit Shane O'Mac. That's legit Shane O'Mac. But then he misses the whole invasion angle because that angle fails dramatically because the bigger stars from WCW, they were not part of that. They no NWO, no Sting, no Goldberg. So
who was the biggest they had? Probably Booker T.
Booker T. And at that time, there was no Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner.
And DDP, there was the awfulest.
But that awful storyline with The Undertaker.
The stalker.
And at that time, The Undertaker said, I'm not pulling any guy from WCW over. That's one of the few times The Undertaker put his backstage power. It's like, oh no, if I have to buy one of these guys, I'm going to beat their asses out. And you can tell, Kane and Undertaker wins the WCW Championship. Oh, they beat him up like bad, and they made them look like idiots. So he comes finally, he signs an 03, he comes out, he has a really good showing though with The Rock. Backlash 03, he beats The Rock and then he starts his run, but right away then you see political power from Triple H, and his run gets completely shut down.
And don't you like how they didn't even talk about this?
Yeah,
I don't even want to say they breezed over it because it was like, Stone Cold said how you signed at WWE. The only thing they really talked about before the Brock Lesnar match at WrestleMania was how him, as Stone Cold and Goldberg, he's like, it just never lined up.
Yeah.
And I said that. I mean, it is kind of true, but it's also they wouldn't have booked the match anyway because who would they have had won? Stone Cold. Stone Cold would have won, but would Goldberg have been like, yeah, that's fine?
Is the Goldberg thing is the same exact reason why Stone Cold did not wanted to fight Hulk Hogan in WrestleMania 18.
And Brock Lesnar.
And it's because he said I'm not supposed to win. And the main reason that he said I will never fight Hogan is because he said when I was like coming up, when I was an upcomer act, he did not want to fight me. He know that I'm legit. I'm not fighting him, and that's why he chose to fight Scott Hall.
Because who gets the bigger pop? I would say ever since '98, who gets the bigger pop?
Stone Cold.
Stone Cold gets a bigger pop than Hogan.
I'll always say, throughout the fact that like we've been doing this show, and right now we're going to mention this. We made it to 100 videos on YouTube. So please, subscribe. The ones that haven't subscribed, please do so. We will have way more content for you guys. So Hulk Hogan made it popular in every single household name, but the most popular star of all time will always be Stone Cold Steve Austin. That when that glass shatters, you know that. So you know, but you're right. So the same reason is what like Goldberg. They don't mention this at all, but we're gonna give you a lot of insight.
Negativity. The only negative in this whole video was just like his football career.
Yes.
Everything that they portrayed in like the WWE was portrayed lightly. They didn't touch on how Triple H pulled backstage politics in the chamber and all that. And,
yes.
There was no. They didn't talk about like with Eddie. Because normally they love to mention Eddie and use that as like a
as a good feel-good moment.
Yeah, they always like to talk about Eddie. They didn't talk about that.
With a really high regard when it comes to it, but they don't mention that. And they don't mention, like you said, how Goldberg's push, because he was hot.
Mm-hmm.
He beats The Rock. That was hot.
Mm-hmm.
He's the hottest guy in the company, in the chamber. You said it the best. He eliminates everybody. So we're thinking, oh my God, he's going to become the World Heavyweight Champion. No, Triple H pulls out the sledgehammer, beats him with a hammer, 1, 2, 3. Triple H retains the title. The whole push, dead. He buried Bill Goldberg in the Elimination Chamber, SummerSlam 03. And despite he becomes the champion, the pay-per-view after that, Unforgiven 03, dead.
But it's like The Fiend. That's like The Fiend in Hell in a Cell.
You made it.
That's exactly.
You right it wrong, but it was already too wrong to right it.
It's too late.
It was too late.
Dead.
He was completely dead. And he even says, though, he recognized I was a piece of shit. I would never felt like I fit in. I was the guy from the other company. So I was always hard to work with. So then.
Well, hindsight's obviously 20/20 because it's like you get a brand new toy. Because I always say Vince McMahon is the 10-year-old kid who loves Braun Strowman. You get a brand new toy, you want to open it. You don't want to wait until you get all the action figures from the whole series, right? You want to open it as soon as you get it. Vince should have waited till he got all those guys. Because, obviously Sting never came. Sting went to TNA and all that then. But wait until he got Flair and Goldberg. And wait until he got all them guys. And then did a real invasion angle where you have one team, like Team WCW versus Team WWE.
That could have been the best storyline of all time.
And not like mixing guys and going like, oh yeah, now we have like some of our guys are on Team WCW and then some of their guys are on Team WWE. Like that was bullshit.
Yeah.
You should have just been one brand versus the other brand.
Exactly.
Like how they did NXT and all that as main roster.
That was handled a lot better. And, instead of giving, little bits. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, Booker T's here. We're going to wait 2 months. Oh, yeah, the NWO is here. Oh, we're going to wait a whole year.
Yeah, that's how it should have been everybody.
It should have been all at once. And that would have been, better. But that's what they said, in many...
And that's why I feel like, to go back on the point that you talked about, that's why I feel he's, didn't fit in. Because it was like, they were just trickling... Like, all these guys who knew each other from WCW, they were just trickling them in. And then they would wrestle, and then, they fucking bury Perry Saturn. He's with a mop.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then he got over with that. And they were still no, they brought these guys in to just get their talent over more.
Yeah, to show them who was the real winner.
Yeah.
And that's why Sting never went there. It took him, till 2014 to finally make the move. But once again, I will mention something now that... Well, I mentioned something in a few minutes. But that's the reason that he never fit in. And then, of course, it brings us to the storyline with Brock Lesnar. And then both of them are about to leave the company. And that's why the match sucked. You know, despite that, like the build that was really good. You know, it helped Eddie Guerrero winning the championship, the undisputed championship, and everything for WrestleMania 20. Even Stone Cold says in the video, like, I was trying to get you guys hyped up. I was trying to move the ropes. I was trying to
he was like,
make you laugh.
he's like, if I would have hit the ropes, he's like, I was gonna do that just to get the crowd excited.
Going, yeah.
But he's like, I didn't want to take the spotlight away from you because they would have just focused on him.
On me, yeah, because that match had to be cut short. It was a big disappointment, and based on that match is, you know, why kind of like they made his return on 2016, and that's when we actually started like to figure it out. Raw break. That's the year that like we started to talk about wrestling, you and me. And it's funny that everything comes full circle to this point, because that was like, oh, Goldberg's coming back, and you will be like, oh, Goldberg, we were talking about it.
Yeah, because I wasn't like big into wrestling when I was like back when the Monday Night Wars and all this, like when I was a kid, but I always knew who he was.
Yes, and you was like, oh yeah, Goldberg.
Yeah, because I was like, oh, like I actually remember him.
Yes, and it's like, oh, he's coming back, and it's because of this match. But what my point before is like, they never mentioned this, but the WWE 2K series has brought a lot of guys back because they made the contract with the game.
Yeah, he was a pre-order.
First, exactly. And they did that with the Ultimate Warrior first. And then Sting. And that kind of opened the door for, you know, talks. And that's what, like, yeah, because, you know, we all have to mention this, pretty straightforward, plain and simple, money moves things. Money is what rules the world. And that's how they got Goldberg to come back.
And I'll never shit on somebody for that, because we all need money.
We all need money, and you know what? And again, this.
And he's not doing something bad. You might say he's selling out, but you know what? What did the $1 Million Man say?
Yeah.
Everybody has a price.
Everybody has a price, you know, and the $1 Million Man always gets his way. And, you know, money is what does it. And I want to tell you that it's important to mention, like, everything, again, came full circle because there was a lot of hype for the match with Brock Lesnar. Even ESPN was covering that. He got an interview on ESPN because they was partnered with WWE. The coaches, like, are you going to come back? I don't know. And then Monday Night Raw, he came back. And then the match with Lesnar, it was really short, the Survivor Series, but everybody was actually happy.
And the one thing they talked about, and I didn't notice it when I first watched it, but then seeing it on the Broken Skull sessions, how like nervous Goldberg was when he came out for that promo, or to cut that promo for the match. But I mean, the way that WWE's now, anytime they bring somebody back like old, they're gonna pop. Yeah. Because just they present the new current stars in such a shitty manner.
It is true.
That when we see an old star who was legit, we're gonna pop.
It is true.
So Goldberg came out, he got that huge pop, and just like that match, like the match of Survivor Series, like you said, it was short, but he came out there and he knocked Lesnar on his ass, and Lesnar sold for him. And that's what made the match so legit.
And that's what, for example, the one thing that you could never say about Brock Lesnar is that he doesn't know how to make money, how to sell.
Oh yeah, and if he likes you, because him and Goldberg have respect for each other. Yeah. I think now, maybe back in 2003, 2004 they didn't, but now I think they do. But that's the thing. If he likes you, he'll sell for you because, like you said, he's a businessman. He knows how to make money. And in the end, I think it worked out for him.
It worked out, and something that we can even expand on this is that because of how legit the match came out and everything, Brock Lesnar is like, you know what? Let's do it again. Let's keep the feud going. And that's how with Goldberg, because who was supposed to be the champion at that time? It was supposed to be Chris Jericho, because the list was so big at that time that they were thinking of giving the Universal Championship, to him and go all the way to WrestleMania. But no. Brock Lesnar says, you know what, we should push this program, and then let's take it to the Royal Rumble, and he eliminates me, and then he gets the Universal Championship, and I challenge at WrestleMania.
But they could have still did all that, and all could have
did
all that.
You can tell Lesnar's pull right there.
Yeah, because the program, it should have been Owens and Jericho at Mania.
But you see how they pull
for the belt,
for political pull. I'm telling you right there. I'm giving you a lot of backstage stories, for our people that are watching the show, because we love you guys. And that's how they get to the match of WrestleMania. And he says, one thing that I kind of appreciate and I don't, is that's the only time when I was walking through that whole path to WrestleMania 30 that I enjoy myself.
Yeah, and what do you think about how he said he just came back for this run, mostly just so his son and his wife could see him wrestle? Because like I said, he met his wife, a stunt woman, pretty much after he was done wrestling. Then he gets back into it so his son can see it. He got into shape, and he was wrestling, and he's like, oh, I want to be a superhero for kids again. Like, what do you think about that whole?
I mean, I can tell you is like, okay.
Like person.
Many
like,
people
yeah.
say it's like, oh, when you become a father, you become a parent, something different is in you. You are like something new is born in you, and maybe he just wanted to be that guy for his kid. I mean, that's something.
But
that,
do you think? But I guess other way I'm looking at it, not to cut you off, is just, but I'm just maybe trying to like put some fuel on your fire before you finish burning here. Is like, what about the money?
Oh well,
Because he never mentioned like, oh, because some people they'll come out and they'll be like, yeah, WWE, you know, like CM Punk talks about the money. He talks about, oh, like what will it take for you to come back? He tweets 2 big cash stack emojis.
Well, but like,
so like,
but
Goldberg could have said, you know, like WWE called and you know they made the right offer and it was the right time and I, you know, can wrestle in front of my kid. It was all, everything came together. He didn't. It was just, oh, it was for my kid. Like that's the thing. Like he tried to present himself as this noble guy, but it's like, come on, you tell me WWE didn't give you millions and millions of dollars.
Well, that's what I mean. Like for example, yeah, when you mentioned that.
And 2K, didn't talk about the 2K deal,
That's
getting
what,
all
pre-order.
those
And no,
pre-order.
that's what I mean. Like, you know, of course, but we, at least for me, I know that the money is there.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, you mentioned something even more. Everything lined up better, because every year you will hear speculation of him coming back. There was always the speculation when Ryback was right there that they were gonna have a match, because there were so many chances when Ryback was fighting.
Oh yeah, well, feed me more. Who's next?
Who's next?
It's the same.
The same, you know, for example, turnbuckle lining up for spear. You know, the same, you know, moveset, very similar physique, very similar, you know, moves in the ring and everything. But you're right, you said it the best. Everything lines up. Hey, I have a kid. I want to show them. They are giving me a huge check from 2K. They're giving me a huge check from WWE. And also, this is the thing, a good storyline. Because Ryback wasn't enough for him.
Yeah, and also
Brock Lesnar.
And also, it wasn't a story thing where he came back. Oh, I gotta win over Lesnar, but then in the end I lose. He became a fucking Universal Champion.
Exactly. So that's what I mean. To me, everything came full circle, and not every single wrestler gets that.
And I don't even think he mentioned like, oh, you know, like I appreciate Kevin Owens putting me over.
No, and see that to me is that the bullshit part of the interview, because Kevin Owens was never, you know, with Universal Championship after that. He never even get a championship rematch with Goldberg.
Oh yeah, I remember everybody was, because that's when the rematch clause was in effect.
Yeah, you know, he got a lot of Universal Championship matches with Seth Rollins, but not that was it. But he was the champion at that time. But he's never got a Universal Championship match. You know, after that, he got the WWE Championship match with Kofi Kingston. You know, this year.
Yeah.
But you know, and he doesn't even thank, you know, Kevin Owens. But I will say probably backstage he did. All I'm saying is like the kind of full circle story that he had. I would much rather see Macho Man Randy Savage on a man like that.
Oh yeah.
You know, come full circle, be in good terms. You know, finish his last run in good terms and give the crowd.
Yeah.
And the crowd gives it to him.
Yeah, how cool would it have been like if he came back, obviously not in 2016 like Goldberg did, a little bit sooner.
You know, in like 2001.
Yeah, and we would have came back and won like the IC belt. Hold up that belt. Because, I mean, even though the heavyweight championship would have meant more, but he was one of those guys who made the IC belt legit.
Yeah.
So to give it to him, it just, you
There
know.
were so many, even I will say, I was never a fan of the old Ultimate Warrior, but something like that for the Ultimate Warrior. You know,
Well, they tried.
Well,
96, and then he was fucking bullshit.
He was bullshit, you're right. But the Sting, why wouldn't you give, for example, like, see, Sting comes back, has the match with Triple H. You know, have Sting
Put him
win
over.
it. Put him over, exactly. You know, that's what I'm saying. Bill Goldberg, and that's my main theme of this interview. He got, you know, the full circle story that many wrestlers were never able to do.
Yeah, and he did the right thing. He had his last match, and the last match you have, you should go out on your back.
Yeah, and he lost, and you and I watched that match. That was our first Mania
it
together.
It was a legit
and
match.
It was legit. It was powerhouse. 5 minutes, all moves. You know, big moves. Spear, jackhammer, kicks out, 2 F5s, done. A lot of suplex city done. And Brock Lesnar becomes the Universal Champion. He goes off, good. And of course, well, he made the stupid mistake of coming back, and they didn't mention that. That, of course, he comes back with the Undertaker because of what? And then we go to John Paul's point, a big check, and he looked like a fucking idiot, and tarnish his legacy.
Yeah, and he was like pretty salty about when people say like, "Oh, look at Goldberg coming down to the ramp. He looks gassed already." He's like, "I pour water on myself because my intro or my what do you call it? The entrance. My entrance shoots out the sparks. He's like, I don't want to light on fire."
The sparks, yeah. So you could tell that the man still had something.
That's what I mean. He was still like upset because if you're not, and the one thing we gotta talk about him being upset is when people call him Stone Cold.
Yes.
And he said like, "Oh, that would really piss me off." And Austin was like, "Why?" And he's like, "I wanted to," this is Goldberg talking. He's like, "I wanted to kill you." And Austin's like, "Me?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Personally, you." And he's like, "Why?" And he said, "Because you were the face of the enemy."
At that time during the Monday Night Wars, you were the enemy. You represented who I was trying to beat. And if, of course, we had the same physique, but I wouldn't be Goldberg if it wasn't for you. So I needed you to be me. It was like, or they feed each other.
And that's the thing. I feel like, and Austin said it would piss him off too, but I clearly don't think it was to the same level as it did Goldberg.
I don't think so.
Because I feel Goldberg, he has this ego, this chip on his shoulder, like, you kind of like, that probably pissed him off because when he looked at himself in the mirror, he was probably like, I'm more legit than Austin. Austin, like, my body's way better. I'm more, more legit. I'm better in the ring. He probably was gassing himself up. And then for someone to call him Stone Cold, that would be like, for someone to call, like, AJ Styles to call them, like, I can't even think, like the Brooklyn Brawler, you know what I mean?
Like,
and it's like...
you're like, I'm not shitting on Jerry Lane, but you're Jerry Lane,
Yeah.
Yeah, or like AJ Styles, but like, you're Christopher Daniels.
Yeah.
Meaning, they're the same, but like, at the same time, it's like, no, maybe I think I'm better.
Yeah.
I'm not lowering myself. If anything, compare me with somebody even higher, I really think your point along those lines is what really makes sense. But now, just to conclude everything, I think that his career was, I will say, up to 2016, really good. This thing with The Undertaker, he was concussed. Yeah, both of the guys, that match should have never happened because you're not going to put two guys that are already old.
No.
And, and also, like, Bill Goldberg never had, long matches. The longest match that he had legit, it was probably like Triple H and DDP. When he kicks out of the Diamond Cutter, and that's a Starrcade 98. And the match was even, it's funny because on pay-per-view, they only hired the pay-per-view company till 11, and the match went over. And they cut the
so you don't see the ending?
So you don't, the people who watch the pay-per-view, they did not see the ending. So what they did to make it up to the people is the next day on Nitro, they had the whole match for free. To people see it, and then you see how he kicks out of the Diamond Cutter, and then he does the jackhammer and done. But what we get from this interview is that a different side of Bill Goldberg. Do I respect Bill Goldberg? Yeah. But
I do too. In the ring and everything that he does, his work ethic. You don't just get the body that he did and do everything he's done just by doing nothing.
The one thing, of course, I will say in my book is like he doesn't love wrestling as much as we do. He was just for his physique and for the people that he was around to. He ended up being a professional wrestler.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, too, because, like you said, you respect him, but there's certain things where it's like he doesn't really like wrestling. He's probably not a fan of the business, really. And, I mean, that's fine if he doesn't like wrestling. There's a lot of, players and athletes in sports that they don't play the game because they love the sport. They play the game because they're good at it and they can make a lot of money.
Yes.
And I feel like that's what Goldberg was like, well, I can do this and I can make money. And once he became a draw, he was like, now I really want to do this and keep making money. But it's like, the thing that bothers me the most is just when, the attitude that he has a little bit. And not, the same thing is, my opinion of Bret Hart is the same thing. Bret Hart's in my top 5 of all time, but as he's getting older, his attitude and outlook on things has been getting, some of it is improving. But then other things, he's just still, bitter about stuff. And it's like, dude, you just got to let it go.
Yeah, it's a little bit, yeah. You can see that, some things are unsettled yet. But, like I said, I think from the Undertaker to this one, This one was a little went down.
Yeah.
quality-wise.
I'm hoping episode 3 picks it back up. I'm hoping to see the hour and a half, hour 40 minutes.
It will be
whatever
nice
it was.
to see like a Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, or I don't know. I mean, Brock Lesnar at some point. I think it's too soon because Goldberg, Lesnar. They're going to talk about the same.
Who would you like to see?
Who would I like to see? That's tough. Like, I mean, Bret Hart would definitely be one at some point. Because I like it when they have a little bit of history with Austin.
Yeah.
Because then I feel he's more comfortable. Because wouldn't you say he was way more comfortable talking to The Undertaker?
Oh, yeah.
Than he was talking to...
he was.
Because he would have never... like I said, I don't know if Goldberg, he might not drink. But I don't know, like... You know, he didn't, like, offer him a shot. There was nothing, like...
there was not, yeah.
Yeah, they felt like there was, like, camaraderie, like a brotherhood.
For example, I will tell you who I want to see.
Yeah, tell me who you want to see.
It's not because, he's huge, but The Rock.
Oh,
because I never seen both of them in the same table.
Well, if they do...
Talking about the rivalry.
I was going to say, I don't know how they're going to book this, if it's, like, 5 episodes, if they want to do seasons, or if they're just going to run it all year nonstop. But if you do seasons... The Rock or Vince McMahon would be a perfect end to a season.
Yeah.
So I agree with
and Bret Hart will be really good too.
And
because,
Bret would be a good
hey,
one.
Let's talk about WrestleMania 13. What did we do? How you helped me to put me over.
Yeah, and how about I'll ask you a current star.
Current star. I will, let's see. I would rather see AJ Styles.
I was gonna say or any of the women. Anybody?
The women.
Becky Lynch, I think, would be a good one.
Becky Lynch will be good, although they did have that episode on his show that he has on USA. So I wouldn't...
Oh, yeah, and they kind of did a backstage thing with Becky Lynch before Mania, so we learned a lot about her from there. But...
Yeah, so I wouldn't... they did a 24 with Becky Lynch. So current, like a woman, I would say Bailey. Bailey will be nice. Maybe
Toni Storm would be cool.
Toni Storm will be cool, but I don't know the references. But Kevin Owens will be good.
Oh, Kevin
current
Owens would
star.
be a good one.
Why? Because you're using the stunner. You can talk about the stunner. Be like, hey, I'm letting you use my move. Is it working for you? Is it finishing people off? So that will be cool. So I think this concludes the video. Any closing thoughts from you?
No, I mean, just like you said, this episode was wasn't as good. But I mean, like I said, I think it was just, I don't know, I feel like just maybe the friendship between them, just it wasn't comfortable. But I'm still loving these Broken Skull sessions.
Yeah.
Like I said, because we learned so much about these people that we didn't know.
The one thing is do not cut the receipt part. Give me everything.
Yeah, that's the thing, because they showed this in the preview, but
and
it's
that's the hook.
But where, now, are we just never going to see this? Is this lost footage?
That's what I mean.
It's not like you're going to release, it's not like this was the TV version and then it's, go on to the network to see it extended. It's like,
so
this is the network.
Anyway, guys, we're going to close right here, but we always we want to thank everybody. Again, Kirsty, thank you so much. And don't forget to check us out. YouTube, The Original Bro Break, Facebook Bro Break, Instagram, The Original Bro Break also. Thank you for the ones that are following on over there. And Twitter, The OG Bro Break. We have a lot of content again for you guys. 2020 is going to be huge for us. So in the name of Jean Paul and myself, we want to say... Ada!